that, we're doing purely cosmetic stuff. We did the suspension last time. It's settled, so it's rubbing on one side. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna roll the fenders, but before we do that, I have to deal with this trim that's peeled back. It was like this when I got it. It was peeled back to about here. The gravity's kind of taking it all the way to there. We're gonna fix that front fender that we've been talking about. But first we're gonna start with this because it has to sit for a while. I want to give the epoxy time to seal. So what I've done is I went and looked at the other side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to work the edge of this back in along and get it kind of lined up. Then I'm going to hold it essentially on there step by step with this painter's tape. Then I'm going to peel back each section of painter's tape, apply the epoxy in here, and then press it back into place. Put a few more pieces of tape on to keep it a little bit tighter than it was with the test fit. And hope that it sticks. So let's get to work on that. All right, so what I have here is just some cheap trim tool that I've used to pull other trim. And rather than use a flathead, I'm going to use this, try and save the plastic bits and the paint and anything like that. Try to work this back up in here. That's about as far as it's gonna go. Okay, and well that's not perfect. It does match the other side pretty similarly. Wish these were pressed up in there a little bit better, but hopefully the epoxy is just going to grab them with this line. I'm going to roll the window up and see kind of how this sits. If it sits okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. 5 feet or 5 miles an hour is good enough for me, but if that looks like it sits and seals okay, then I'm going to mix up the epoxy and apply it. Yeah, so the seal's not perfect, but it's pretty close. I mean, I'm happy with that. None of these windows, the front 2 windows aren't factory anyway. These rear ones don't have a perfect fit, so that's pretty good. I'll run that. All right, so I'm gonna mix up that epoxy and apply it. Stuff stinks. But essentially all you do is push it out, mix it. At that point it will be, once it's mixed, it's going to start to be ready to set. Looks to be about the right color. Wasn't coming out evenly at first, but I'm going to go apply gobs of this and reset all of the tape that we had there. so that section's set back nicely. Get rid of that tape. But so far, so good. All right. So that should be that. I'm gonna let that set overnight. That should work. That's not, I'm sure, the completely correct way to do it, but for what I need, I mean, nobody's ever gonna know. There's a little bit of overdrip on the actual rubber itself. I'm gonna clean that up with scrubbing and some hot soapy water. Should get that basic stuff off. Yeah, all right. Let's move on to that front fender. So the issue we're having here is an issue I've had on other cars as well. There's a simple, essentially, clamping mechanism. It's like a little plastic screw that should be able to press in here and hold this fender in place. It's not currently doing that. No matter what I've done, I've fussed with it a bunch. It's not going to do that. I could probably order replacement parts if I knew a little bit more about bodywork. I have a much less elegant solution, and if you're not a fan of the last solution for the trim back there, you're not going to love this one. But using this small drill bit, I drilled a small hole in the fender, nobody's ever going to see, and another small hole in the fender liner. Now the fender liner is held in several different spots, and it's in pretty good shape, but has enough flex to it that I don't have to worry about this plastic, ripping out or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use zip ties to hold the fender in position using the fender liner. Not the most graceful thing I've ever done, but I think functionally it'll work well. So I'm going to sort that out now. I should be able to, with this much play here, I should be able to get the zip ties into the position I want and get it all done. And that's it. Took a little bit of messing with, and it's not perfect. And if you look very closely, you can see it. But 5 feet, 5 miles an hour, that's kind of my rule. Did I spend a bunch of money doing anything? Nope. It was a 10-cent zip tie. Max play is that right there, kind of unsettling it, but for the most part, it's going to be staying in place. So any of that pressure down there before that was doing it, should be able to keep it intact. All right, so the car is settled. I let it sit for a couple of days, drove it around a little bit, tried to get the car to settle, took it over some bumps, intentionally kind of worked the suspension. When the rear settled, on the driver's side, as you can see, it's been rubbing. So what's happening is the inside of the fenders here, they stick straight in, and when the car loads the suspension up, it's just rubbing right on the sidewall. This isn't super aggressive fitment. I think these are ET48 or 52 with a 25 mil spacer, so you're looking at around an ET of 30 on an 8. That's not a lot. That's 30 millimeters back spacing. It's not in comparison to the factory wheel, which was about an ET 50, 55. So not crazy fitment, not a ton of tire, but with the way it is sitting, I'm going to bring the fronts down a little bit likely in the spring. I'd like to leave the rears here. So I'm going to roll the fenders. And the proper way to do this is to buy a tool that bolts onto the hub and allows you to slowly work the fender in. As you can see, even though this is a California car, it's still a 15-year-old car. The paint's not perfect. There's scratches everywhere. So what I'm going to do is jack the car up just far enough so I can get the handle of the top of a wooden baseball bat in. And I'm going to heat the paint ideally to around 200 degrees and slowly roll this lip back. I'm not trying to bend this fender out. I'm not trying to go crazy. And this is aluminum, so if I do it a little bit, I should be able to pop it back in place as long as I don't drop the car on the bat. So my plan is to lift it up slightly and get the bat in and just slowly work at a different angle. I'm gonna work the bat flat, and then I'm gonna slowly work the angle up more and more. So hopefully the suspension can travel up and down without this sidewall rubbing on the tire. So let's get started. Using heat, you can even feel where, you start to run out, where you're going to actually start to damage the paint. Using that heat allows you to kind of feel where it has give as well. So I can already feel the angle of this inside fender adjusting, so I'm gonna keep working my way back. I'm gonna adjust and do more angle until I get it a pretty good angle in there. I might even use my knee a little bit once I get it moving far enough. That's it. We finished rolling the fender here. It is tucked up in there pretty well, pretty consistently. I don't see any damage on the paint. There was already a little bit from the rubbing on the very tip, but you can't see that anymore. Now it's folded up in, so I'm pretty happy with that. We have one other small thing to do, and that is to put on a couple of STI decals that I purchased on eBay. I thought they were factory fog covers, but they are not, which is what happens when you buy parts off eBay. But since we've got the wheels, we finally did the suspension, let's toss those guys on. Okay, so to prepare for this, I washed both fog light covers and washed my hands, made sure there was no grease on them. I'm using my existing fog light covers because they're already beat up. They match the rest of the bumper. This kit came with matching fog light covers, same color, close enough. I figured these would blend in better. So in order to try to get these in the general center, I measured, if this isn't a square, I measured, if this was a square, pretty close to it. Found roughly the center point, and then measured the STI sticker. I thought these would come assembled. They didn't. And essentially from that center point, how far out, how far up, how far down, and then how far left and how far right I would have to be roughly centered. It doesn't have to be perfect inside of that box. It's kind of guidelines. I used black on black, so you probably can't even see it on the camera, but you can see it when you're essentially looking at the reflection. There's a black dots along the way that I can use as guidelines. And even if I don't get it perfect, as long as I get the sticker pretty much square to the bottom, parallel to the bottom, it should look okay. So that's what we're gonna go for. If they look like trash, I've got the spares. I'll throw those on, or just use some brake clean and pull the stickers off. No big deal. I should have known for the price what I was getting myself into. That is eBay parts for you. Looked a little high in my opinion, so even with my measurements, I'm gonna go down a little bit. It's pretty close to parallel to the bottom. And from the center out, grab my Irving rewards card for gas and just kind of work like you would with a screen protector and work out any bubbles underneath this. Try to get it without sealing anything in. I'm sure it's not perfect. Hopefully it's not horrifically crooked. It looks all right to me, you know? Like I said, 5 feet or 5 miles an hour. I can also grab the heat gun, kind of work out some of these bubbles as well. Seems to be doing an okay job though. Good enough for me. I'm not gonna get the heat gun out, it's close enough. I'm just gonna measure out the other side the same way. Get that sticker on there and I'll throw these back on. All right, now that we've finished arts and crafts, I'm gonna stick these back in where they belong. First, just able to secure that in there. Getting these in and out is pretty easy. There's just there's a hole for a flathead, so you just pop that in and out. If you're doing it, I would recommend wrapping the screwdriver in tape or a little towel and just stick the flathead in there and pop them out to the other side and we'll be done. So tonight was pretty low-key, pretty easy. We're doing things that I kind of tacked on that I realized I wanted to do or needed to do as I went. That window trim, I knew it was bad since I got it. I just happened to not think of it when I first started working on the car. And as I've been driving it, it's been falling down further and further. The STI fogs I picked up, like I said, I got a deal on eBay, which kind of a mistake, but I do think they fit the theme of the car. I picked them up after I got the STI wheels. I thought it'd be kind of fun to get some matching stuff. And then rolling the fenders I put on after we finished up the coilovers in the last episode. So those are all done and we can get back to the main stuff. We can start working on the exhaust and the intake, the air pump delete. We also fixed the fenders. That was one that was on my mind. So productive, little stuff. It's little stuff that you got to get done, in order to get the car the way you want it. So like I said, next up will be exhaust and intake. I do have to drop it for an alignment, so that'll be pretty soon as well. So we'll work on those next. That's the exterior cleanup finished. Tune in next time as we start adding bolt-ons. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, hit the like and subscribe buttons below.